In this video we're going to look at how to construct a figure for a scientific paper or poster. Now a scientific figure should be clearly labelled, it should have all lanes or points of interest labelled, it should be well presented, that is, it should be very neat and tidy, it should have a legend that has a title and has the figure number in it, and the legend should contain sufficient information so that the person looking at the figure doesn't have to go back and look at the main paper or the poster to understand the figure. Now on the left is an example of a figure from a paper. As you can see, it has the gels and the blots at the top of the figure are clearly labelled with what each lane contains. The lanes are numbered, we've got molecular weight markers on there. And in the legend we have a figure number, in this case figure 1. We have a title for the figure in bold. And then we have a description of the contents of that figure, what's in each lane of the gels shown. So if we look more closely at the gels, what we can see here is that we've got it all nicely labelled up so we know what is going on. And then in the figure legend what we can do is talk about those lanes. So the first thing we need in the legend is the figure number, figure 1, and a title. Then we describe the lanes. So for example, lanes 1 and 2 tells us that we've got GLUT4 vesicles there. It tells us that in lane 1 there are 10 to the 7 adipocytes, and in lane 2 there are 5 times 10 to the 6 adipocytes. It tells us what those lanes were stained for. Lanes 3 and 6 again describes the content. It gives us what the abbreviations are: PM for plasma membrane, LDM for low density microsomes. So this means that whilst I'm looking at the figure, I don't have to look at the paper or the poster to understand it. Now another type of scientific figure is a graph. And when you draw a graph and produce a graph for a scientific paper or poster, the graph needs to be neat and tidy. You want to have both axes labelled, and again the figure legend should have a number, the title, and the legend should describe what's going on in the graph. So if we look at the graph here, as you can see, the axes are clearly labelled, absorbance to 50 nanometers and time in minutes, and we've also got a figure legend that describes what the different points are showing. So for example, closed circle is PM basal. Closed triangle is PM insulin treated, and you can see the two lines are labelled PM and LDM. Again, the figure legend, just as we saw with the earlier figure, it has a figure number, it has a title that gives a sort of brief description of the figure, including any abbreviations, and then the rest of the body of the figure legend here gives me sufficient information so I can interpret the data that is shown in that graph so that I know how that data was produced and what it is telling me. Sometimes we have a lot of data to show, or we may need to have that in one figure. So what we can do is create two panels. In this figure you can see I've got panel A showing one lot of data and panel B showing another lot of data. And again in the legend I describe what is going on in those different panels and in the different lanes of the gel. So in summary, a scientific figure should be clearly labelled, it should be well presented and neat, the legend should have a title, and the contents of the figure legend should give me sufficient information so that I can understand that figure without having to look at the main body of the scientific paper or the poster. And that's it. That's how you create figures for scientific papers and posters.